Signor Ferruccio, I'm telling you that the clutch in my car works marvelously fine. The temperamental Enzo Ferrari didn't want to admit at all that there could be at least something wrong in the design of the cars he produced. I don't know. Maybe you're well versed in tractors, yes, but you'd better not get into sports cars. This is clearly not for you. Better do what you're able to do, not what you don't understand. Ferruccio Lamborghini left the Ferrari factory in a state of bewilderment and visible irritation. He only tried to point out the problem with the Ferrari 250 GT, but was met with a decidedly unfriendly reception. And he was especially angry about the words that had to do with the inability to understand cars. After all, he worked a lot with them and knows their specifics quite well. He knows it. Well, perhaps he'll have to show this arrogant Signor Enzo the depth of his wrongness, even if it means jumping over his head. After all, this is not the first time for him to do a new thing when others doubt his success. The man of today's episode is Ferruccio Lamborghini. Keep watching. It's never too late. For 6 decades, the Lamborghini brand has been a kind of benchmark for expensive and prestigious sports cars, the ownership of which can definitely be regarded as a sign of a rich and successful person. Meanwhile, its founder, Ferruccio Lamborghini, paid attention to this field of activity at the age of 47, when very few dared to try something new. More than that, he was already well known as a manufacturer of tractors, had his own successful market and, in principle, could well remain in comfort zone. But nevertheless, Lamborghini did not settle for it, and today we'll recollect primarily his connection with first-class sports cars. So, how did he take control that successfully? Perseverance will always give you results. Born in April 1916 in a small Italian village, the boy was the eldest son of farmers and, according to local traditions, it was he who was supposed to inherit his parents' farm. After that, his life would flow along a well-established track. Grow grapes, make wine from them, and then sell it. The business is righteous, the market is large, and the reputation is decently respectable. But young Ferruccio was not at all interested in winemaking and agriculture in general. He was most attracted to technology. And the parents, seeing this, did not object, but organized a small workshop on the farm, where their son spent almost all of the evenings. This helped him get a job in a car repair shop and then enter the University of Bologna and study the structure of various types of cars, tractors, and other vehicles there. But shortly after graduating, World War II broke out and Lamborghini was drafted into the army and then sent to serve in the island of Rhodes as a mechanic in the Italian Air Force. He repaired a variety of equipment there, including German and British transport, gaining a huge practical experience in a few years. Here, Ferruccio showed himself to be a persistent and stubborn man, who could repair what others gave up before. After the end of the war, Ferruccio returned home and opened a small workshop for the repair of agricultural machinery. But the Italian peasants of that time didn't get much out of it, and seeing this, he already had the idea in mind and thought of tractors and trucks. And then he assembled his first tractor and, seeing that its design was quite successful, began to buy faulty military equipment and cars to convert into small tractors. In 1949, Lamborghini founded the Lamborghini Trattori Company and soon opened a factory for the production of tractors. The main thing is your faith in your own abilities. The rest is secondary. Moreover, he designed them himself, because by that time he was sure that, in other words, Ferruccio was a self-sufficient person and believed in his own strength. And so much so that he wasn't afraid to take a loan for this business on the insurance of the whole family farm, and things went up. If in the first year the company produced less than 400 tractors, then in the mid-1950s already more than 150,000 tractors, and at the end of the decade, the company actually became a monopolist in Italy for the production of tractors and entered the European market, gaining popularity throughout Europe as well. After that, in 1960, Lamborghini founded another company, Lamborghini Bruciatori, which was engaged in the production of industrial refrigeration equipment. It also quickly became successful, since such products were not produced in any form in Italy at all. We've got to add that Ferruccio showed foresight and used an integrated approach in his business. Together with production and sales, he established a service network. This significantly increased the volume of purchases and, consequently, income. This way, by the early 1960s, Lamborghini was already a rich and well-known man in Italy. Nevertheless, he was not afraid to come to a new field for him, since he was always interested in new technologies and sought to implement them in production. And he was absolutely sure that even the best things can be improved, even when this may seem impossible. Therefore, when Enzo Ferrari said that he didn't understand anything about sports cars, Signor Ferruccio took it as a challenge and accepted it, burning with the idea of creating a sports car overall better than his. Firstly, do your research. Now, for the second hour, Ferruccio Lamborghini walked around his office, thinking over the strategy of his actions. And in general, by that time he had already presented it and was now completing the formulation of clear principles for working in a new business segment for him. And the first of the rules claimed that you should not try to reinvent the wheel. The most effective solution would be to design a product taking into account the experience of your competitors. In other words, you should first carefully study their achievements and miscalculations, and then create something of your own based on their achievements and faults. After all, the main thing is to gain a foothold in a new market, and this can only be done if you offer something better than other businesses. And second of all, he is really well versed in both tractors and cars, but sports cars still have their own specific aspects to them. Therefore, you should not act by touch, but it'll be best to lure leading specialists from competitors and get to know the secret sauce. And he knew very well that many of them will agree if he, as a business owner, can offer a significantly higher salary. After all, most people work for money. By the way, Enzo Ferrari recently left a whole group of specialists who had quarreled with his boss, who, by his own admission, has an unbearable persona. Oh, perhaps our main person of the story can start with them. A year later, same office. While the debut was clearly a huge success, the first model of the new company, Lamborghini 350 GT, turned out to be very profitable. Its engine was in the same class as Ferrari's, but was more technically advanced. The layout is pretty classic, but the design of the case was accepted by society as almost revolutionary. It perfectly matched the spirit of the time. It looks very impressive, and the emblem of the new brand is also truly successful, an angry bull preparing to attack its opponent. Ferruccio Lamborghini smiled slightly, remembering how he had come up with it while visiting a ranch in Spain, where bulls were specially raised for bullfighting, and he associated himself with such an animal, a bull, stubborn, tough, and strong person. And also carried away by his idea so much that he didn't notice the obstacles and stubbornly implemented it. Well, it seems that he has managed to get used to a new area for himself, and now it's time to prepare the next model, which should become a real and absolute breakthrough. Create the car of your dreams. 2 years later, the same place. Well, now we can congratulate ourselves on the obvious success. The Lamborghini Miura made a splash on the market, and now Signor Ferruccio remembered with pleasure the huge crowd that surrounded his orange supercar when he parked it at the Hôtel de Paris in Monte Carlo. And that time he came to watch the Grand Prix races, and at the same time to advertise his novelty. And this idea was beyond successful. The rise of Lamborghini after such a spectacular demonstration was simply impressive. So much so that Miura's sales are ahead of those of its direct competitor, Ferrari, who, as he already knows, frankly regrets that he once said too much. Yes, it was the desire to achieve a better result than that of the competitor that largely contributed to the success of Ferruccio Lamborghini. It stimulated him to look for the best specialists in all technical and design fields, sparing no expense on their salaries. This justified itself. The product they issued was out of competition. It's fair to say that it seems that now this industry will no longer be the same as before. You buy a Ferrari when you want to prove something, and you buy a Lamborghini when you have nothing to prove. This idea suddenly occurred to the main person of this episode, and he immediately realized that it would become an advertising slogan of his cars. He can't help but wonders what Signor Ferrari will think about this. Year 1992, Ferruccio Lamborghini estate, Umbria province. In winter, after harvesting grapes and making wine, it's time for Italian winemakers to relax. So Signor Ferruccio was resting from business with a glass of wine in his hand, indulging in memories of the past. This happens from time to time when you're already over 70 years old and unwittingly sum up the preliminary results of entire life. And Lamborghini could well say to himself that he had succeeded in his life. By the year 1973, he had reached the peak of his fame and fortune. His cars received worldwide recognition and became the dream of millions of people. His bet on innovation and advanced technology played out to the fullest, Many new products were used for the first time in Lamborghini cars, and they began to be considered symbols of prestige and luxury, standing out for their unique design and practicality. And everything would be fine, but the oil crisis broke out and the volume of orders fell significantly. Therefore, Lamborghini made an unexpected decision. He sold his share of the company's shares to his friend from Switzerland, and he himself bought land and began to grow grapes on it for his own winery. Such an unexpected turn of fate. But Ferruccio Lamborghini didn't regret his made decisions in life. He managed to realize the main goal of life, to create the car of his dreams. Thank you for watching. We hope you liked this episode about Lamborghini, so leave a like and subscribe to see more episodes like this one. And for now, see you in upcoming episodes.